The hospital ship Mercy Dawn moved slowly through the empty space between the stars. It was not a warship. It carried no heavy cannons, no strike wings, and no battle armor. Instead, its halls were filled with doctors, nurses, and patients. The wounded came from many colonies. Some were soldiers injured in earlier battles, while others were civilians caught in crossfire. The ship was a place of healing, a place where war was supposed to stop at the door. Inside, the crew worked in silence and care. Dr. Lena moved from one room to another, checking on her patients. She had dark circles under her eyes from long nights without rest, but her voice stayed calm. A soldier with a broken arm smiled when she entered, because her presence gave comfort. A child from a colony far away clutched a toy and whispered thanks when she adjusted the medical band around his wrist. For Lena and her team, the Mercy Dawn was not only a duty but also a promise. It was a promise that humanity would not abandon its weak. The ship's captain, Tomasz, stood on the bridge and looked at the stars. His crew watched the scanners carefully. They all knew there were dangers in this sector. Raiders moved across the lanes like wolves hunting in the night. Still, the captain trusted in one thing. He believed no enemy would waste time attacking a hospital ship. Such ships carried no weapons, only hope. The calm was broken without warning. Alarms screamed as the scanner officer shouted. A fleet had appeared at the edge of range. At first the captain thought they might be allies or neutral ships. But the officer's next words crushed that hope. The signatures were Valen. They were known across the galaxy as raiders who cared little for honor. "Open a channel," Captain Tomasz ordered. His voice was steady though his heart raced. The channel opened and he spoke firmly. "This is the human hospital ship Mercy Dawn. We carry no weapons. We carry only wounded and medical crew. By all laws of war, we request safe passage." The answer came as fire. Valen weapons lit the black void, striking the shields again and again. The bridge shook under the force. Sparks flew across the panels. Officers fell from their seats. The Mercy Dawn had shields for protection against debris and small threats, but they were not built for war. Inside the wards, panic rose. Patients cried out as the lights flickered. Nurses rushed to keep them calm. Dr. Lena held a young girl's hand and spoke in a steady voice. "Do not be afraid. We are here with you." Her words gave courage, though the walls shook with every impact. The captain tried one more time. He sent message after message, begging the Valen to see reason. But the raiders ignored him. They saw the hospital ship as an easy prize, a weak target. Their culture respected only power. To them, sparing the helpless was a waste. Fire spread along the corridors as explosions ripped through the hull. Emergency doors sealed, cutting off sections of the ship. The crew worked without rest, guiding patients to escape pods. Each pod could hold a small group, and many feared there would not be enough. Lena guided her patients through the smoke-filled halls. She carried the child with the toy in her arms, refusing to leave him behind. Around her, nurses helped the elderly and injured toward the pods. Every second counted. The roar of battle was all around them. On the bridge, Captain Tomasz knew the ship could not survive. The shields were failing, the engines crippled. He gave the only order left. "Launch the pods. Save as many as we can." His crew obeyed at once. One by one, small pods burst from the sides of the ship, streaking into the dark. Each carried souls hoping to survive. The Valen noticed but did not stop. They kept firing, determined to erase the Mercy Dawn. To them, it was not enough to cripple. They wanted to destroy completely. Dr. Lena reached the last pod with her group. She looked back at the burning halls, her heart heavy with sorrow. She knew many would not escape. But she also knew she had to survive. Someone had to carry the truth. Someone had to tell the galaxy what had happened here. She entered the pod and sealed the hatch. As the pod launched, Lena pressed the record button on the small communicator. Her voice was calm though her eyes were full of tears. She spoke simple words. "This is Dr. Lena of the human hospital ship Mercy Dawn. We were unarmed. We carried only the wounded. The Valen attacked us without mercy. Humanity remembers." Outside, the Mercy Dawn burned bright against the darkness. Flames swallowed its hull, and then it was gone, broken into silent fragments that drifted in the endless night. In her pod, Lena's message traveled across the stars. It would be picked up by patrol ships. It would spread from colony to colony. It would not only tell of the attack but also ignite a fire in the hearts of humans everywhere. The Valen believed they had destroyed a weak and defenseless ship. In truth, they had created a symbol that would be remembered by every human who heard those final words. The escape pod carrying Dr. Lena drifted through endless space. Inside, the air was thin and the lights were dim. The pod had no weapons, only basic life support and a weak transmitter. The patients with her were silent, some in pain, some in shock. She kept her voice calm, speaking to them softly, reminding them that they were not alone. Every breath was a struggle against fear, but she never let it show. Hours passed, and the pod floated further from the ruins of the Mercy Dawn. The stars outside seemed cold and uncaring. Still, Lena's mind was clear. She knew she could not fight the enemy with weapons, but she had something else. She had the truth. The truth could travel faster and reach farther than any fleet. She opened the recorder again, speaking slowly so her words would carry weight. "We were healers. We carried no arms, no soldiers ready for battle. Yet they came for us. Let every colony know this. Let every fleet remember it. Humanity is not weak. We are alive, and we will not forget." Her message was sent in every direction. The pod's signal was faint, but the stars were vast and patient. Somewhere, someone would hear. She kept recording, sending fragments of testimony, telling the names of patients lost, and describing the courage of crew members who gave their lives to protect others. Every word she spoke was a seed planted in the soil of human memory. When a patrol vessel finally found the pod, Lena had little strength left. The rescuers lifted her out, along with the injured survivors. They carried her to safety, and the recordings she made were taken to the nearest relay station. Within days, the message reached human colonies across the sector. The first people to hear her words were the miners of Calix Station. They played her recording in the mess hall, where men and women with soot-stained faces fell silent. Anger rose in their hearts, but it was not wild anger. It was the steady fire of determination. They sent the message onward. Soon it reached the far farms of Argos Prime, the crowded cities of Terra's outer colonies, and the great shipyards orbiting Lunaris. Everywhere, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Her words were simple, but they struck deep. Humanity remembers. That line spread faster than any fleet. It was carved on walls, painted on banners, and repeated in quiet conversations. Mothers told it to their children. Workers spoke it in factories. Soldiers repeated it as they strapped on their armor. The phrase became a chain binding every human together. The leaders of the colonies gathered in urgent councils. They debated what to do. Some argued for caution. Others demanded revenge. The fleets were still small, the colonies young, and humanity could not risk a full war. Yet they could not ignore the attack. To do nothing would mean showing weakness to every race in the galaxy. Among the many who listened to Lena's words was a man named Aaron. He lived on a small research station far from the front lines. He was not a soldier. His skill was not in combat but in thought. He had a mind that saw patterns where others saw only chaos. As a child, he could solve puzzles faster than anyone else. As an adult, he studied war not as a warrior but as a scientist. To him, every battle was like a game of logic with rules waiting to be uncovered. When he heard Lena's message, something inside him shifted. The Valen believed humans were prey. They believed they could strike without consequence. Aaron decided that belief had to end. He sat at his desk, the recording playing again and again, and he began to draw. His screen filled with diagrams of ships, lines of movement, and numbers stacked in endless rows. He was not designing weapons of destruction. He was designing weapons of thought. Meanwhile, Lena recovered in a medical ward on a human colony. Though her body was weak, her spirit stayed strong. Visitors came to see her, bringing thanks and flowers. Soldiers saluted her. Civilians wept when they held her hand. She had not fought with a gun, but her courage had changed something larger than any battle. She became a symbol of what humans could endure. News of the Mercy Dawn reached beyond human space. Other species watched in silence. Some felt pity, others fear. They had seen the Valen attack colonies before, but never had those attacks carried such weight. Humanity had responded not with silence but with a message that grew louder with each passing day. In the council chambers of the Human Alliance, the debate grew fierce. Should they declare full war against the Valen? Could they even survive such a war? The fleets were scattered, the colonies stretched thin. Yet Lena's message made it clear that to ignore the attack was impossible. Humanity could not stand as healers alone. They had to defend their right to exist. At that moment, Aaron stepped forward with his first proposal. He asked the council to listen not to the strength of their fleets but to the strength of their minds. He spoke of strategy, of traps, of turning weakness into power. His words were calm, but his eyes were sharp. Some laughed at him, calling him a dreamer. Others leaned forward, listening carefully. Dr. Lena's message had lit a fire. Aaron's ideas promised to give that fire shape. Together, they marked the beginning of something new. The Valen thought they had destroyed a helpless ship. Instead, they had created the spark that would turn into a storm. Across the colonies, the words continued to echo. In every corner of human space, people repeated them with growing pride. Humanity remembers. Aaron sat alone in the quiet chamber of the research station. The walls around him hummed with the sound of machines, and his screen glowed with lines of numbers and shapes. For days he had studied every report of the Valen raids. He traced their attacks, marked their paths, and noted their patterns. Where others saw chaos, Aaron saw design. The Valen moved like predators, circling the weak, striking only when they sensed no danger. The Mercy Dawn had been their boldest attack yet. Aaron knew why. The Valen thought the hospital ship was helpless, and to them helplessness meant nothing but an easy hunt. They expected fear, surrender, and silence. Instead, Dr. Lena's message had spread across human space, proving that memory itself could become a weapon. But memory alone was not enough. The Valen had to be shown that even the weak could fight back. Aaron believed the solution was not to build more weapons or larger fleets. Humanity could not yet match the Valen in numbers. Instead, he believed in turning weakness into a trap. He began to design decoy hospital ships, vessels that looked unarmed but carried hidden defenses and called nearby fleets when attacked. The idea was simple, but the effect could be powerful. If the Valen kept attacking what they thought were easy targets, they would soon find themselves walking into carefully built ambushes. When Aaron first presented his plan to the Human Council, many were uncertain. The leaders sat in a grand hall filled with noise as voices rose in argument. Some called the idea reckless. They said it was wrong to use ships disguised as hospitals. They feared the Valen would punish the colonies even more if they discovered the trick. Others, however, listened with interest. They knew humans could not fight head to head. They had to use their minds. Aaron spoke with calm strength. The Valen believe we are prey. They look at us and see only weakness. Let us give them the weakness they expect, but let us turn it into a blade. If they strike at us, they will bleed instead. The room grew quiet as his words sank in. One commander leaned forward. And who will serve on these decoy ships? Who will risk being bait for raiders? Aaron answered without hesitation. Volunteers. Those who know the cost of silence. Those who understand that sacrifice now will save thousands later. To the surprise of many, volunteers stepped forward at once. Nurses, engineers, even injured soldiers asked to serve. They remembered the Mercy Dawn. They remembered the names of friends lost in that fire. They wanted justice, and they trusted Aaron's mind to guide them. The first vessel chosen was a transport ship refitted to resemble a hospital carrier. It was painted white and marked with red symbols of aid. Inside, however, it carried hidden transmitters and shields upgraded in secret. A small escort fleet waited far away, ready to move at Aaron's command. The ship was named Hope Vessel. Its crew was small, but their courage was vast. As the ship left the dockyards, crowds gathered to watch. Families waved from platforms, children shouted words of encouragement, and workers raised their fists in silent promise. The sight of the decoy stirred something deep in every heart. Humanity had always healed its wounded, but now even its healers were willing to fight. Aaron stayed in the command room of the fleet that shadowed the Hope vessel. He sat before a table covered in maps and signals, his mind racing through possibilities. He knew the Valen would come. They could not resist what looked like easy prey. It was only a question of when and where. Days turned into tense waiting. The Hope vessel drifted in contested space, sending out signals of distress as if it carried wounded from a recent battle. Its crew followed their roles carefully, speaking in calm voices and keeping the ship steady. Every moment was a test of patience. At last, the Valen came. Their ships appeared from the shadows, sharp and dark against the stars. They moved with arrogance, certain of their victory. On the bridge of the Hope vessel, the crew pretended to panic, sending false cries for help. The Valen ships closed in, their weapons charging. Aaron watched from his hidden command post. His fingers moved across the controls, his eyes focused on the enemy formations. He waited until the first Valen strike lit the void. Then, with a single command, he released the hidden fleet. Human cruisers surged forward, their cannons blazing with controlled fury. The trap snapped shut. The Valen had no time to adjust. Their ships broke apart under precise fire. Some tried to flee, but the humans had already sealed their escape paths. It was not just victory. It was proof. The plan worked. When the battle ended, Cheers erupted across the human fleet. On the Hope vessel, the crew embraced one another, relief mixing with pride. They had risked everything, and together they had shown the galaxy a new truth. Humanity might look weak, but weakness itself could be turned into strength. News of the victory spread as fast as Lena's first message. Colonies lit their skies with signals of celebration. Workers sang as they built more ships. Soldiers trained with renewed energy. And everywhere, people spoke Aaron's name. For the first time, the Valen had been forced to retreat from what they thought was easy prey. The humans had struck not with raw power, but with the mind of a single man who refused to accept defeat. Aaron knew the fight was far from over. The Valen would come again, perhaps stronger, perhaps angrier. But he also knew something had changed. Humanity was no longer only remembering. Humanity was now fighting back. The Hope vessel drifted quietly in open space, its white hull shining against the dark. To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing more than a simple hospital ship. Its signals spoke of distress, repeating again and again that it carried wounded and was in need of help. Inside, the crew moved with steady hands. Their voices were calm, their actions precise. Every one of them knew this was not just a mission of survival. It was the first test of Aaron's plan. Aaron himself sat in the command seat of a nearby cruiser hidden in the shadow of a small moon. Around him, the screens glowed with streams of data. His eyes followed every number, every movement, and every faint change in energy. He knew the Valen were close. He could almost feel their approach. Hours passed. The crew of the Hope vessel kept their act alive. They carried on as if they were a broken, vulnerable ship. The waiting was the hardest part. Many had to push down their fear. They had volunteered, but still the memory of the Mercy Dawn lived in their hearts. No one wanted to end like that. Yet they also knew that this time they were not alone. This time, traps had been set. The silence finally broke. The scanners picked up movement. Valen ships emerged from the darkness, sharp and jagged, their engines glowing with cruel light. They moved like hunters circling prey. The bridge of the Hope vessel grew tense, but no one broke character. The crew sent false distress calls and pretended to panic, just as Aaron had instructed. The Valen commander, arrogant as always, sent no reply. His ships spread out, preparing to strike. To him, it was only another weak hospital ship, another helpless crew to be destroyed. He ordered his fleet to close in. On the Hope vessel, Captain Wren gave a quiet order. Hold steady. Do not fire. Let them believe. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the chair tightly. The enemy grew closer, their weapons heating. Every second stretched long and heavy. In his hidden command post, Aaron watched and waited. His eyes scanned the patterns. He did not move too soon. He knew the Valen had to be fully inside the trap. Only then would the strike be complete. He let them circle the Hope vessel, let them lock their weapons, let them believe victory was already theirs. The first shot came. A beam of energy struck the shield of the Hope vessel, shaking the ship. Sparks lit the bridge. A few crew members cried out, but they continued their act. The Valen fired again and again, the hospital ship shuddering under each blow. Aaron's voice cut through the tension. Now. At his command, the hidden fleet surged into view. Cruisers, frigates, and gunships roared forward, weapons blazing. The void lit with fire as human ships struck the Valen from all sides. Precision shots tore into the enemy hulls. Engines exploded, ships broke apart, and confusion spread through the Valen ranks. The raiders had expected no fight. They had prepared for helpless prey, not for hunters waiting in silence. Some tried to turn and flee, but Aaron had already thought of that. Human ships blocked their escape routes, cutting them off with deadly accuracy. The trap closed tight, and the Valen were caught in a storm of fire. On the bridge of the Hope vessel, cheers broke out as the enemy ships fell one by one. Captain Wren's voice rang clear. "Hold your ground. Let them see the strength of those they called weak." The battle was short, but it was fierce. When it ended, the Valen fleet was shattered. Only a few broken ships limped away into the void. The humans had won not with overwhelming numbers, but with planning, patience, and the courage of those who risked everything to serve as bait. News of the battle traveled faster than light across human space. When colonies heard that the Hope vessel had survived, when they learned the Valen had been beaten back, they rejoiced. Bells rang in stations. Crowds filled the streets, singing and cheering. In factories, workers lifted their tools high. In farms, families lit fires to honor the fallen of the Mercy Dawn. Everywhere, the name of Aaron spread like a whisper turned into thunder. Dr. Lena, still recovering on her colony, listened to the reports with quiet pride. Her message had carried the truth of human suffering. Now Aaron's plan carried the truth of human strength. Together, they formed two sides of the same story. One voice had awakened the memory of the people. One mind had given that memory the power to fight. The Valen were shaken. For the first time, their arrogance had been broken. They had thought humanity weak, yet they had been outsmarted and outmaneuvered. They would not forget this defeat. But neither would humanity forget the victory. The Hope vessel returned to port to thunderous applause. Crowds filled the docking bays, holding banners and chanting words of thanks. Volunteers from other colonies stepped forward, asking to serve on future decoy ships. They too wanted to stand in the face of danger, to prove that humans could not be hunted like animals. Aaron, however, did not celebrate. He stood quietly in his quarters, staring at the stars on his screen. He knew this was only the beginning. The Valen would not retreat forever. They would come again, stronger and with greater numbers. The battle was won, but the war had only just begun. Still, he allowed himself one moment of calm. He thought of Lena's words, "Humanity remembers." Now, humanity did more than remember. Humanity resisted. Humanity fought back. And under the cold light of distant suns, Aaron began to shape his next plan, one that would push the Valen further than they had ever been pushed before. The Hope vessel moved slowly through empty space, its white surface glowing against the dark. The ship looked harmless, its signals repeating messages of distress. "This is a hospital transport. We need assistance. We carry the injured." The words spread across the void again and again. Inside, the crew worked with calm discipline. They were volunteers who had known the risk before they agreed to this mission. Each of them remembered the Mercy Dawn. Each of them carried sorrow for friends and family lost in that attack. Now they had chosen to turn that sorrow into strength. Their hands moved steadily over the controls, though their hearts beat quickly. The bridge of the Hope vessel was quiet except for the hum of systems. Captain Wren sat in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. His crew looked to him for strength, and he gave it with his steady presence. He reminded them that they were not alone. Somewhere in the distance, hidden behind the shadow of a moon, a fleet of human warships waited under the command of Aaron. If the enemy came, if the trap worked, they would not stand helpless. Aaron sat on the command deck of a cruiser, surrounded by maps and glowing screens. His mind was sharp and restless. Every report, every energy signal, every faint reading was studied and measured. He was searching for signs of the hunters. He believed the Valen would come. He knew them well enough by now to understand their pride. They would not resist the chance to strike another hospital ship. Time passed slowly. Hours turned into days. The Hope vessel drifted in contested space, calling for help as though broken. The crew kept the act alive. They moved as though tired, as though lost, as though unable to defend themselves. It was not easy to wait. Fear pressed on them like a heavy weight. Still, none broke. They had made a promise when they stepped onto the ship. Then the moment came. The scanners lit up with movement. Dark shapes slid out of the shadows of the stars. Valen ships approached, their hulls jagged, their engines bright with cruel fire. They moved with purpose, spreading out like predators ready to strike. On the bridge of the Hope vessel, the crew tensed, but Captain Wren kept his voice steady. Stay in character. Do not resist. Let them come closer. The enemy sent no words. They gave no warning. To them, it was simple. Another weak ship, another easy target. Their weapons charged as they closed in. Inside his hidden command post, Aaron leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. He tracked their formation. He counted the distance between them and the Hope vessel. He knew the exact second when they would be fully inside his trap. He gave no order yet. He waited. Patience was his weapon. The first Valen blast struck the Hope vessel. The ship shook violently. Sparks rained across the bridge. Alarms screamed. A second strike followed, and then a third. The shields strained under the fire. The crew cried out, acting their part, sending desperate distress signals into the void. To the Valen, it looked real. They believed they were moments away from another cruel victory. That was when Aaron spoke one word. Now. At his command, the hidden fleet emerged. Human cruisers, frigates, and gunships burst out from behind the moon, their weapons glowing with fire. They attacked as one, striking the Valen ships with precise power. The dark space lit up in bursts of flame. The Valen were caught off guard. They had expected no fight. They had expected easy prey. Now they found themselves surrounded. They tried to turn, to flee, but Aaron had already predicted their escape routes. Human ships blocked every path. Cannons fired, and enemy hulls split apart. On the Hope vessel, cheers rose as the trap closed. Captain Wren's voice rang strong. Hold your ground. Let them see what it means to underestimate us. The battle raged quickly, but it was one-sided. Human ships struck with discipline, following Aaron's commands without hesitation. Valen ships exploded one after another, their fleet falling apart under the storm of fire. Only a few managed to escape, fleeing into the black with broken engines. When the fight ended, silence filled the bridge of the Hope vessel. Then the crew erupted into celebration. They had survived. They had done more than survive. They had proven that the weak could fight back. News of the victory spread at once. Relays carried the story to every colony, every station, every fleet. Humanity listened in awe. The Hope vessel had not been destroyed. Instead, it had been the key to victory. The name of the ship became a symbol, and the name of Aaron spread with it. Crowds gathered in docking bays when the ship returned. People waved banners, sang songs, and shouted with joy. Families wept as they embraced the survivors. Volunteers stepped forward from every corner of human space, asking to serve on the next decoy ships. They wanted to stand as bait if it meant the enemy could be defeated again. Dr. Lena, recovering on her colony, listened to the reports. She felt pride grow inside her. Her message had awakened the memory of humanity, but Aaron's plan had given that memory strength. Together, their actions showed the galaxy a new truth. Humans did not bow down to cruelty. Humans turned sorrow into defiance, and defiance into victory. The Valen were shaken. Their commanders spoke with anger, unable to believe they had been fooled. For the first time, they had lost to humans they called weak. Their pride was cut, and their fear was growing. Yet Aaron did not celebrate for long. In his quiet chamber, he studied the stars again. He knew this was only the beginning. The Valen would come back. They would gather larger fleets, and they would strike harder. The war was far from over. Still, in that moment, one truth was clear. Humanity had set the first trap, and it had worked. The hunters had become the hunted, and history had begun to change. The Valen fleet had gathered like a storm on the edge of human space. Hundreds of ships moved in precise formation, their engines burning bright with power and arrogance. They believed that this time, they would crush humanity completely. Every raid, every ambush, every loss had only fueled their anger. They wanted revenge, and they intended to wipe humans from the stars. Aaron studied their formation from his command cruiser. His eyes scanned the fleet, tracking every vessel, every signal, and every movement. The numbers were overwhelming. The Valen outnumbered the humans more than 5 to 1. Many would have panicked, but not Aaron. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He had faced impossible odds before and had won. This time, he would do it again. "Sir, they are moving into attack position," a young officer said. Aaron nodded, his mind racing. "Good. Let them believe they have the advantage. That is their mistake." The human fleet prepared to engage, but Aaron did not order a direct attack. He had something else in mind. Instead of confronting them head-on, he began transmitting false signals. Across dozens of sectors, ships that did not exist appeared on scanners. Entire fleets were projected into the void, mimicking human movement and strength. The Valen saw these signals and believed the humans had many more ships than they truly did. The enemy paused. Confusion spread like wildfire through their ranks. Their commanders tried to reorganize, but every signal suggested humans were everywhere, surrounding them from all sides. Fear crept into the minds of soldiers who had never known fear before. The Valen had expected weakness. Instead, they faced the illusion of overwhelming force. Aaron gave quiet commands to the real fleet. Human ships moved like shadows, striking in ways the Valen could not predict. Missiles fired, lasers hit weak points, and communications jammed enemy coordination. Every action was precise, timed with careful calculation. The Valen ships scattered, chasing empty signals, turning on one another in confusion. On the bridge of his cruiser, Aaron allowed himself a small smile. The Valen had underestimated human intelligence. They had counted on fear and surrender. Instead, they faced strategy, patience, and calculation. For the first time in their history, the enemy fleet faltered not because of firepower, but because of the mind that guided the humans. Meanwhile, Dr. Lena watched the battle from a nearby colony station. She had recovered from the injuries of the Mercy Dawn, and her voice was heard across human networks, giving hope to civilians and soldiers alike. She had always believed in the power of human courage. Now she saw it in action. Her heart swelled with pride as the humans turned the tables on the Valen. The enemy tried to regroup, forming clusters of ships to attack the nearest human vessels. But every move they made was anticipated. Aaron's simulations had predicted their strategies. Every path they chose led to traps, ambushes, and blocked escape routes. Confusion became panic. Panic turned into chaos. The Valen fleet, once proud and confident, now scattered like leaves in a storm. Amid the chaos, human ships struck decisive blows. Key Valen command ships were targeted and destroyed. Without leadership, the rest of the fleet was directionless. Their powerful engines could not save them from the precision of human tactics. Aaron's fleet moved as one, coordinated and unstoppable. Even as the battle reached its peak, no human ship had been lost unnecessarily. Aaron had designed the plan to minimize risk, using intelligence and deception to turn the enemy's strength against them. Every volunteer, every pilot, every crew member played a part in rewriting history. By the end of the fight, the Valen had suffered a crushing defeat. Scattered ships fled into the void, engines damaged, morale broken. Humanity had not only survived, they had won decisively without facing the full force of the enemy directly. Aaron's genius had made the impossible possible. Across human colonies, celebrations erupted. Cities lit up with fireworks and lights. Workers, soldiers, and families cheered. The words of Dr. Lena echoed once more, "Humanity remembers." But now, humanity also acted. They had taken the first step in reclaiming their place in the galaxy. Aaron did not rest. He knew the Valen would return. They would plan again, seeking revenge for this humiliation. But he also knew that humans had learned something vital. Weakness could be turned into strength. Intelligence could be as deadly as firepower. Courage could inspire action greater than the sum of any fleet. The breaking point had passed. The Valen would never look at humans the same way again. Their arrogance had been shattered. Across the stars, humans felt new pride and purpose. They had survived attacks, avenged their fallen, and proven that the galaxy could not underestimate them. And in the quiet of his command room, Aaron began preparing the next phase. He studied maps, calculated probabilities, and imagined the moves of the Valen fleet. He knew the war was far from over. Yet he also knew that this victory marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity was no longer prey. Humanity had become a force that would shape the future of the galaxy. The battle was over, but the galaxy had changed forever. The Valen fleet had fled, their pride shattered and their plans in ruins. Human ships moved through space with purpose, escorting survivors, rebuilding defenses, and carrying messages of hope to every colony. Humanity had won not by brute force but by courage, strategy, and the clever mind of Aaron. Dr. Lena stood on the deck of a rebuilt hospital ship, the new Mercy Dawn II. Its hull gleamed under the light of a distant star. She looked out at the stars with quiet pride. She thought of the old Mercy Dawn, and of all the brave crew who had given their lives. Their memory was now honored in every corridor, in every ward, and in the actions of every human who refused to be weak. Volunteers moved around the ship, caring for patients, checking supplies, and repairing equipment. The atmosphere was calm but purposeful. Lena smiled as she watched them. Humanity had learned something important. They had learned that even healers, unarmed and vulnerable, could spark change in the galaxy. Courage and intelligence could rewrite history. Aaron stood in a command center aboard a human cruiser. His mind was still restless, thinking of strategies and plans. He did not seek fame, but he understood the power of his actions. By using the Valen's arrogance against them, he had turned what seemed like weakness into a weapon. Entire fleets had been outmaneuvered, and human colonies had seen that strength could come from minds as well as from ships. Messages of victory and hope flowed across human space. Colonies lit celebrations, but they also prepared for the future. The war was not completely over. The Valen would return. However, humans now had something more than fleets and weapons. They had confidence, unity, and strategy. They had learned that their greatest power was not in guns, but in intelligence and courage. In the council chambers, leaders spoke of rebuilding and of creating new systems to protect every colony. They spoke of alliances with other species who had witnessed humanity's cleverness and bravery. Many who had once doubted humans now sought friendship. The galaxy was watching, and the perception of humanity had changed. Humans were no longer weak. They were respected, and even feared, not for cruelty but for resilience. Across the colonies, Dr. Lena's words were remembered. Humanity remembers, she had said. But now humanity also acted. People rebuilt ships, cared for the wounded, and trained for defense. They honored the fallen not only in memory but in action. Each person, from children to veterans, felt a new responsibility to protect life and uphold the courage that had saved the galaxy from the arrogance of the Valen. Aaron's strategies were studied across colonies and fleets. Military academies included them in lessons. Leaders discussed how intelligence could turn the tide of war. Volunteers who had served on decoy ships were celebrated as heroes. They had risked their lives to bait the enemy, and in doing so, they had shown that bravery could exist in all forms. Humanity had rewritten what it meant to fight. Even the Valen would remember this lesson. Their commanders would carry the defeat in their minds. The arrogance that had guided them before had failed. They had learned that underestimating humans was a mistake they could not repeat. And humanity, aware of this change, would be ready for the future. The rebuilt Mercy Dawn II continued its mission across the stars. It carried wounded, but now it carried pride as well. Each crew member walked its corridors with purpose. Each patient received care and hope. The ship was a symbol not only of healing but of human determination. It reminded the galaxy that kindness was not weakness, and that even those who healed could shape the outcome of war. Dr. Lena watched as a new generation of healers and volunteers prepared for missions. She knew that every life saved, every patient comforted, and every volunteer who faced danger was part of a larger story. The story of humanity rising above cruelty, of minds turning weakness into power, and of courage shaping the course of history. Aaron, standing in the command room, looked at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but he smiled knowing that humans had proven themselves. They had survived attacks, defeated powerful enemies, and changed the way other species saw them. Humanity had become a force that could not be ignored. The first attack on the Mercy Dawn had sparked fear and sorrow, but it had also awakened resolve. From tragedy came strategy, from despair came courage, and from weakness came strength. Dr. Lena's message, Aaron's plans, and the bravery of countless volunteers had rewritten history. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity remembered, fought, and endured. And as humans continued to explore, heal, and defend across the stars, they carried with them a lesson that would echo through generations: courage, intelligence, and unity could change the fate of worlds. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. Humanity had written a new chapter in galactic history.